Finally! After a lot of patience and a series of updates to whet our appetites, the full Act 2 of Ultrakill has dropped like a bloodthirsty robot with a lot of pocket change. Bringing with it 3 new layers of hell-raising combat, along with new tools of destruction to splatter the blood sacks. In today's video, I'll be going over the new content, offering my opinion and letting you know if this inferno is still worth the descent. So let's stretch out our fingers, grab some rockets, fill up on some fuel, and maybe pack a swimsuit, because it's time for some more hell-raising Ultrakill. Ultrakill Act 2 largely mirrors the structure of Act 1. V1 will journey through 3 new layers of hell: Greed, Wrath, and Heresy. I've already covered Greed in a previous video, so I'll give you the quicker summary version. Greed features an ancient Egyptian theme that brought me right back to classics like Power Slave. With levels revolving around environmental obstacles like burning sand you have to platform around, and pitch black hallways you have to light with a torch. A big highlight in this layer is the new power-up, the Dual Wield, which for a limited period of time allows you to enter Ultrakill Nirvana as you decimate these blood sacks with guns akimbo, doubling your attack power. And you can quadruple it too if you're lucky enough to find another power-up. New foes also join the fray. The Stalkers can cover enemies in golden sand that prevents them from bleeding, which is bad as blood is fuel, aka health. Also, I know these guys are a shout out to the game Stalker, but am I the only one here who sees a guy in a gas mask carrying around a bunch of magic sand and immediately thinks it's a shout out to Neil Gaiman's Sandman? I mean, he's literally a Sandman. The angelic virtues add some nail-biting pressure to combat encounters with their powerful lock-on holy beams that can only be dodged at the last second. Greed also gifted players the Whiplash, a grapple hook handy for platforming but also pulling the baddies right up to your face for some quality time. All in all, a banger of a layer that has kept our Ultrakill thirsts quenched. Okay, now with the new stuff. After Greed, V1 ventures into layer number 5. Wrath. Now in Dante's Inferno, one of Ultrakill's core inspirations, Wrath, the 5th circle of hell, is where the stinking, marshy river Styx resides. Here, the wrathful dead fight within the torrenting waters, and Dante, along with his guide Virgil, are reluctantly transported across it by the ferryman. Therefore, unsurprisingly, Ultrakill's Wrath features a nautical theme that vibes a bit like Lovecraft, with rickety sea shanties, a vicious storm, and of course, terrors from the deep. And yes, the river Styx is here, but is more of a ocean Styx. And if you look closely, you'll see the poor, wrathful souls trapped within it. Aw, poor little alpha layer. Act 2 gets you well acquainted with the moist new theme by plunging you deep underwater in the first level. And if you're wondering what underwater combat in Ultrakill is like, it's fine. It's really your typical low-gravity gag. It's slower, floatier, and you can go huge distances. The trade-off being it's kinda tricky to control. It's not bad or unenjoyable, but it's the sort of thing that's only really fun in small doses, which is exactly what this is. Underwater combat is only minorly featured in the rest of Act 2, which I think was a wise choice. And to the devs' credit, they do get creative with it in the combat arenas of this map, playing around with fighting in and out of water. And perhaps there's an alternative way to play through this level if the player looks close enough. Ho ho ho. Making their introduction in this level is the new enemy, the Sentry. Essentially a walking turret. They lock onto you with their pink lasers, and if you're still in their sights at the end of the beeping countdown, your health will be devastated by a hit-scanning shot. Luckily, they're easy to disrupt. Ground pounds and railgun attacks are a few of the ways to interrupt them, and despite being a little spongy, they are not difficult to take out. Easy to kill, catastrophic if left alone. A solid new enemy. My favorite level of this layer is the 3rd one, taking you into the ferryman's cruise ship for a series of intense battles in cramped quarters and winding, towering vertical spaces. But where things get real cool is when the ship pulls a Poseidon adventure, capsizing and forcing you to go back through an inverted version of the level for more violent, albeit waterlogged fun. Layer 2 also features a pair of new enjoyable boss fights, the Ferryman himself being one of them. The Ferryman feels like a tougher, remixed version of Sword Machine, where he rapidly lunges at you to attack and gives the player a brief, and I mean brief, moment to parry for extra damage. A good boss fight for sure, although I have to admit, because we've battled Sword Machine so many times up to this point through multiple boss fights, secret boss fights, and later on as a standard enemy, I think it takes some of the bite out of this battle. I know Ultrakill likes to retool its boss fights, which I welcome for the most part, but in this case I think they could have done more to help this fight stand out. But then again, you don't necessarily have to fight him if you don't want to. Leviathan, however, is the standout. This is probably one of the easier boss fights of the game, but it's also one of the most spectacular, as you whittle down the health bar of this giant sea beast who will attack you with the whole of his body and belches out a shower of projectiles, giving players a bit of a finger workout as they dodge, jump, and deflect at the last minute. It's awesome. A new reoccurring device are the idols. Idols are statues that resemble the Lord's baby mama. They put a shield around one enemy in the battlefield, preventing all harm. The only way to destroy them is with a melee attack or slam. They're very similar in concept to the buff totems in Doom Eternal. I appreciate their inclusion, an inconvenient obstacle that should get players' hearts pumping as they anxiously seek them out. And who could blame them, since the idols typically protect enemies that can hurt you from anywhere in the battlefield, like the virtues. And the devs are not shy about using them in tricky ways, like placing them behind glass boxes, forcing the player to wipe out all the non-protected enemies while staying away from the protected ones' attacks. It's fun stuff. Wrath introduces a new weapon, a proper rocket launcher, more specifically the freeze-frame rocket launcher. For the most part, it behaves as you would expect and hope. Shoots a rocket, rocket goes boom, blood goes sploosh. I'll be honest though, I was a little lukewarm on this guy at first. Seemed a hair redundant to me personally, as the special attack for the shotgun is a pretty solid rocket launcher itself. Not to mention, the rocket only deals damage with a direct hit. Although, to be fair, indirect shots can launch enemies, which is pretty handy. It's also ineffective against certain enemies. Rockets will bounce right off of a malicious face, and street cleaners will deflect it like it's nothing. But like most of Ultrakill's arsenal, it's all about that alternate. Hitting the right click freezes the rockets in place for a short period of time, indicated by that little timer right there. So basically, you can throw up multiple rockets in the air like you just don't care, and have them all launch at once, which can make for beautiful scenes of destruction. Oh, and just you wait for when you have a chance to dual wield them. In this light, the rocket launcher can be an absolute blast. No pun intended. And the more I used it, the more I liked it, especially as I got wiser to how to use the alternate fire effectively. And yes, there are some special tricks you can do with this guy. For example, it is possible to ride the frozen rockets, which I'm sure players will use in spectacularly stylistic ways. But I was appreciative of this for the secret hunting. It's a worthy addition to the arsenal, and I'm looking forward to see what its other variants are. The final layer of Act 2 is Heresy, the most overtly hellish-looking layer in this robotic journey through the afterlife. Heresy is identical in terms of structure to Act 1's final layer, Gluttony. It's comprised of only 2 levels, the first being a big combat gauntlet, this layer in review type thing, making you face most of the enemies up to this point, along with the new devices and mechanics. After that, the second and final level revolves around the final boss of Act 2. There's not much I have to say on this layer. Both levels are solid fun, and the boss is sure to get players sweating. Although in the grand scheme of the game, the first level is not terribly memorable, as it doesn't introduce anything new. Granted, the demonic visual style, while familiar, is pulled off to great effect. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded a few more levels to play in this layer. And yes, I know, Gluttony only had 2 levels too, but you know what? I wouldn't have minded a few more levels than that either. Well, disregarding the P door, of course. Overall, I think Act 2 of Ultrakill is a success. The new mechanics and devices it introduces cleanly clicks into the gameplay like Lego bricks. The new enemies add a whole lot of pressure to the still insanely fun combat. Not to mention the hours of gameplay people will get out of this mastering each level and finding all of the secrets, which there are many. Although when it comes to the levels, I don't think it hits quite the same heights as Act 1. Greed, I think, is the strongest layer of the three. In fact, I think Greed is one of the strongest layers of the whole game. Wrath is strong as well, especially when it comes to that cruise ship level and the final boss fight, although I don't think its theme is as captivating as the other layers. And while the underwater combat featured was an interesting curveball, it didn't exactly blow me through the back of my seat. And Heresy, while fun and challenging, is kinda forgettable compared to everything else. Either way though, one of the best indie shooters on planet Earth just got a whole lot better, and as it stands, I cannot recommend Ultrakill enough. If you've been curious about this game, now is as good a time as ever to jump in, and if you already own it, oh shit, you're already playing this and just watching this review because you can't get enough of it. And who can blame you? Now from here, all that's left, or all that appears to be left, for Ultrakill to complete its early access journey is Act 3, which I'm sure will bring new layers, new horrors, and more reasons to swear at my computer screen and laugh with bloodthirsty joy. And when Act 3 finally comes, be sure to check back to this channel for what will likely be my final Ultrakill review. What are your thoughts on Greed, Wrath, and Heresy? Be sure to let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please be sure to subscribe, like, and ring the bell for notifications on future uploads. It's a couple clicks for you, but a massive help for this channel. And don't be shy, come say hi in the Kirk Collects Discord, linked below, and be sure to peek my affiliate links. I'm Kirk, and thank you for watching this video. Stay safe out there.